Hello, everybody. This is Joe Crisera, and today we're at our webinar called "Dealing with Difficult and Demanding Customers." Julie, from time to time, although we have our best intentions, we run into some customers which I call service terrorists who make us feel bad. We lose our self-esteem, kind of lose our rhythm and our pace throughout the entire day, and can destroy an entire week with just a difficult or demanding customer. How important is this webinar to be able to deal with and be able to channel people into good customer service solutions who are having this effect on the company?
Oh, well, I think anybody who does customer service or just anybody in general knows that you could do 1,000 things right, and it could be that one thing that you do wrong, and that's the thing that's going to stand out or stick out in your head forever, right? So you could have 1,000 clients in a row that you handle with no problems whatsoever. You get them booked on the schedule. Your closing rate is sky high, and then you have that one customer that is difficult and very demanding, and it pretty much sends you into a slump at that point, or at very least is the one that you remember for a very long time. So I feel like this is a really important discussion for us to have with people in the customer service industry, so that they know that even though you have this one person that's going to come along every once in a while, and they're always going to come along, it's never going to be 100%. Not everyone's going to come to you on a chipper, happy mood all the time. So there's always going to be one. I think it's important for us to know how to deal with them and make sure that they don't ruin it for everybody else, or for ourselves for that matter, because that particular person can really, as I said, kind of send us into a slump, and as a customer service representative might decrease the value that we have towards the company at that point if you let it stick with you for too long.
Well, how important is it that we don't let it destroy and take it personally, our own self-esteem? We are, obviously we have a delicate balance. A lot of customer service reps try to make friends with a customer, and this is, of course, the opposite of making that friend. You may have a friend, but the friend is angry at you. And we've all been there before, where even family members can sometimes not agree on things and wind up having arguments, if you will. And so obviously, as a customer service person, we're not allowed to participate in an argument, yet we kind of feel the brunt of it. How important is it we don't take it personally before we get started with these 7 different things, these tips you've got for us to be able to deal with it?
Mm-hmm. That's really kind of one of the tips, but that's okay. We'll do it as the last one. So,
okay. I start with the beginning with the end in mind, I guess.
That's all right. We could go ahead.
I guess we should just say at this point, mind like water. Let's launch into these 7 things. And while you're listening to these things, don't worry. Don't take it personal. When you get a difficult or demanding customer, it's just a situation that they're involved with. There's nothing to do with you personally. So let's go ahead and launch into these things. I'm sorry I got into stuff.
That's okay. I was going to go ahead and make a point on that. As you mentioned, as with any friend or family member, you are going to have difficult times at some point. You're never always going to agree with with your best friend even, or with your family members at all times. So it's going to be very much the same thing when it comes to customers. 90% of the customers or 85% of the customers are to come in and pretty much go along with the flow of things. Then you're probably going to have another 10% of customers who are going to be just a little bit difficult, not too difficult, but maybe a little more difficult. And then you got the last 5-6% who are probably going to be a little bit more difficult with you type of customers. Not always demanding, not always difficult, but they're going to come in and you're going to get them, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with them. So I think if you understand that, that's just part of being in the customer service industry. No matter what kind of policies your company may have in place in order to deal with customer concerns that come in, or the callers that are coming in, you're just going to get your fair share of them. Some may get a few more than others at times, and you by learning some of these tips that we're giving today, hopefully will help you better deal with them, so that you don't take them personally, as you mentioned, and you can deal with them effectively.
So let's go through the 7 different tips you have for dealing with difficult and demanding customers. The first tip being listening patiently. Julie, could you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about that?
Really, that's probably the fault of everybody does this, right? So a customer starts to talk and starts to tell us a problem, and we automatically want to jump in and fix it. I know you tend to do that a lot. You like to fix problems all the time before I can even tell you the whole entire problem in your head. You're just one of those people. You like to automatically try to fix it, and I think a lot of people want to do that, especially when you're in customer service, because here you are. You're there to come up with some type of solution for them going forward. So we automatically want to jump to conclusions, or maybe you even heard something around the office, like you heard a technician come in, and he started saying, "Oh, I had issues on this customer. I walked into their house with, I tracked dirt all over the carpet," and so you might have even heard something like that, and now here it is. The customer's calling in, and you're the lucky one who gets to deal with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we jump to conclusions when people are calling in. In our mind, we've already kind of played it out because we want to be prepared, right, as much as we can. But it's not necessarily always the same thing that they're calling in for. So we want to make sure that when a customer is calling in and there's any kind of a situation going on, a customer concern going on, or any kind of a call, that we let them speak first and we listen during that time over what it is that they're saying.
Good point there, Julie. And so I think a lot of times what I think that means is that we have to listen without any kind of filters, meaning that listening patiently to consider everything people are saying and where they're coming from when they're saying it. And I think you can tell you're doing this wrong by listening patiently when you are already trying to figure out what you're going to say when somebody else immediately stops talking. I think one piece of advice I would say is try to create a 1,000 count when somebody stops talking, to kind of create that a little bit of error between what they said and what you're saying. The most gross, you want to say, violation of this principle of listening patiently would be, of course, beginning to talk when somebody else is still talking. I call it talking on the back of somebody else's words. And that really infuriates customers even more. So even if they weren't really angry at your company, odds are if you begin to do that, you will then get people in a state of anger. And if you had a friend, you're going to lose one real quick like that.
I think that's very true, and that's probably hard. Again, one of those hard things for a lot of people to do, to wait. Even as you and I do webinars sometimes, I'm thinking about what I want to say next and how I'm going to add on to what you're saying and hopefully even make it better. And sometimes I need to jump in there right away. And I find myself, it's a difficult thing to do. I think it's difficult for most people to do that. So I think that's a really good suggestion. Try to wait, give yourself a count there of 1, and then you can go ahead and say what you need to do. This way you're making sure that the customer has finished their complete thought and everything that they need to say there, and then you take a second to think about how you're going to respond now in return.
Julie, tip number 2 is to show empathy. Now, for me, I think showing empathy starts with making sure that you're clarifying. Because empathy can be something that really is very valuable in the process of doing customer service, but it can also be infuriating when empathy turns into sympathy. Could you comment on that for us?
I think that's very true. For me, empathy is really about putting myself in the customer's shoes at that point, but without feeling sorry for that person necessarily when I'm talking to them. So I don't want to turn this into there's some type of victim of our company. That's definitely going to make the situation worse. But I do want to make sure that I'm putting myself in the client's shoes. So when somebody's calling me up and they're telling me, again, that maybe somebody tracked mud through the house, or they parked in the driveway and they leaked oil, they ran over the rose bushes, they hit the mailbox, as they were coming up, they left the place dirtier, when they left, whatever the situation is, I need to make sure that I'm putting myself in the customer's place, in their shoes, and really understanding what it is that they're telling me at this point, without going to that. I almost think the sympathy is a almost an extra step. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
harder,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of making them feel like a victim of our company at that point. Like, oh, poor you, type of thing. Because we really don't need to do that. We don't need to make them seem like they're a victim of the company. And again, that can create a lot of other problems. So, by putting myself in their shoes and understanding where they're coming from, it's really going to help me as a customer service rep to better understand and go ahead and resolve that situation for them.
I think understanding is the key thing here, right? Showing you understand. Uh, what if you're trying to show empathy, but you don't quite understand? How important is the use of questions when you're trying to show empathy?
Definitely, being able to ask questions throughout that is really what's going to help you be able to understand what the situation is. So making sure that you're asking the appropriate questions, whatever the concern may be, making sure that you're maybe repeating it back to them after they say it, so that they can make sure they hear you say it and that they realize that you're understanding it, are really two important parts of empathy.
I think just understanding and then being able to summarize the situation that you're hearing for the customer. Now, there is an art and a skill to this, right? For instance, somebody said, your guy tracked muddy boots and he trashed my rug, and now I have to spend $80 to get my carpet cleaned, per se, and that was unacceptable. And then it's like, well, certainly, tell me more about that. What happened exactly? And then you ask another question. It's like at the end of it, I think you got the picture. So it sounds to me like you really feel like we've disrespected your home, kind of in a summary fashion. It's kind of like, yes, now you get it. So in a way, it's like the empathy means for the customer that, oh, they finally get what I'm trying to say here. That it's not just about the carpet. It's really showing the disrespect in a way, and that's what I'm doing. That's what you're really saying there. So empathy, the language of empathy is not the language of sympathy. It's the language of understanding, I would say. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think that is excellent a point in making sure that you're summarizing it back to them. And this way they really do know that you're understanding it, understanding where they're coming from with it. So you may be like, so he tracked mud throughout your house, and okay, the
Yeah,
customer.
it's like what is not acceptable to me. You want to blow this part of it is to. I know some people will disagree with this, but I feel like just repeating the same exact words the customer said, to me, that sounds like I'm talking to a parrot.
Right.
And you're not really understanding me. You're just repeating my words. Using different words in a way shows that you've digested what I'm saying, and you're now expressing back in a completely different language almost, but still landing on the same point that I'm talking about here. It's like and those statements would sound like, well, that sounds like we really disrespected your time, or it sounds like we've disrespected, that you feel disrespected in your own home. Those are things that are kind of overall things that people say, yes, you understand me, which is different than just saying, so he tracked muddy boots on your carpet and you bought it at the high-end store, and you're repeating exactly what the customer said. It really doesn't necessarily show the understanding. It just shows you're good at listening and repeating and not necessarily understanding.
And I
Make
think
sense?
that the disrespecting, or we're showing a lack of respect, that's a great way to return it back to them. Because a lot of times that's what it comes down to, is we're showing a lack of respect or disrespect to the client. So I would try to keep that one in my pocket, to use quite a bit, actually.
Yes, that is a good
in
one.
showing empathy.
Number 3, lower the voice and slow down the speech. Tell me about that, Julie.
Yeah, so, we're taught as customer service reps to answer the phone in a very happy, pleasant manner. It's a great day here, make sure you're smiling, that whole portion of it. Now you have somebody who is a difficult or demanding client on the other end, and you don't necessarily want to be laughing at them or smiling while you're resolving their problem. If they hear that in your tone, I think you might start to have some issues there.
So the greeting could start out happy,
Yes.
and then as soon as you hear you got somebody who's in an angry state of mind or they're complaining about something, you need to kind of then change the tone and then say, okay, we're gonna now move from the fun room to the serious room.
Exactly.
And let's go ahead and make sure that now we're in a different type of scenario here.
Yes, exactly. So if we still come across in that happy, we're having a great day here while you're having a miserable day over there, it's going to cause some issues down the line. But definitely if you change that tone, so by just lowering your voice just a little bit, making sure that you're slowing it down, particularly when you're repeating the problem back to the client, I think those are really good tips for you to be able to use to deal with difficult and demanding clients.
I think that's a good idea. Basically, you're setting a serious tone and understanding and slowing it down, meaning that kind of taking the pace that you're going to take this into careful consideration.
Exactly.
Number 4 says to imagine an audience. Could you tell me more about that?
That's I think this one is a really good tip that I got from somebody else on imagining an audience. And really, it's a great way to make sure that what you're saying doesn't get too out of control. If you imagine you're in front of an audience, you're in front of a group of people as you're talking to this client on the phone, there are definitely going to be some things that you're not going to say that you would say. Things that you wouldn't say in front of an audience, I guess is the way I'm saying it. So you might even say, like, imagine you're in front of your grandmother. How would you talk to them, as you're on the phone and dealing with a difficult and demanding client. You're not gonna fight back and call them names or say things that are inappropriate if you imagine you're in front of an audience as you're talking to them.
I think that's a good point. I think when you imagine you're talking to an audience, you're also, because more people are hearing this message in your mind, you're more accountable to what you're saying. That if you're going to promise something, you're promising it to not just this customer, but if you're going to fix this problem for this customer, you're probably going to fix it for 500 other customers. So in a way, it does a lot of good with pretending you have the audience or imagining you have the audience, because now it's like, well, what I'm saying I have to be held accountable to, and not just with this customer, but with every customer. And it could actually help change the company and what they do in the process of their service that they perform.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So you're in front of the customer, you're in front of an audience of people. You're making sure that you're staying appropriate in front of them without getting angry or getting mad. It's much harder to do that when you're in front of a group of people than it is when you're just if you imagine yourself you're in front of a group of people. It's much easier to stay calm and not say things that you shouldn't say, as opposed to things when it's so easy to do it over the phone because you're not even in front of that person. So I think that's good. And your point as well, if you're going to promise it to this person, are you going to be able to promise it to the rest of the audience as well? Hold yourself accountable and promise it to everybody in the future. So it holds you accountable in a lot of different ways. You don't want to overpromise something to a client that you can't necessarily produce on, and it's going to make sure that since everyone else is hearing it, that you're going to get it done.
Very good. Number 5, Julie, is be wrong to be right. So in a way, one of the best ways that you can turn around an angry or difficult or demanding customer is to not only agree with them, but agree even more than they are saying. So, for instance, one of the tips would be to say, somebody says, you're late and that's not acceptable. And you'd say, yes, that's not acceptable. As a matter of fact, we're going to have a meeting about this to change this right away. And so not only are you admitting that this is not right, I wouldn't necessarily say we're wrong, but in a way, I'm going to say, you know what, this is not acceptable. You think it's not acceptable. You should see what I think. We not only do we do this, not only do we do training and service, but we also are losing customers over this. So we're going to change this situation 100%. So how important is it to not only admit it, but to demonstrate that that you get it so much that I understand this is wrong. We're going to go ahead and get this thing fixed. That immediately, when somebody understands that they're doing something wrong, that's the first step to improving.
I think so. I mean, that's very true. So it's like if you immediately see that it's wrong, you should be getting almost, like you're saying, almost more upset than the customer is on the phone at that point, and letting them know that we're going to be doing something about this right now, and what could they possibly say to that in that situation then that we're going to be fixed. So we're not only going to fix your problem right now, but we're going to fix it for everybody else that this might possibly ever happen to.
Yeah, I mean,
going in the future.
The point is this: not only do you admit it was wrong for this customer, but it's wrong for everybody. So you're even just a little bit more wrong than the customer is telling you are. And that kind of, in a way, positions yourself like, I'm not in this for me. I'm in this for you. So you're, in a way, you're doing a real-time demonstration that I'm not in this to save my own skin. I'm in this to make this right for you. That's my motivation here.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? I think that's the key thing. So whenever I had a customer concern, I'm always like, I'd say, well, I'll get on the phone with them, have no problem talking to somebody. And the first thing I wanted to do is listen to how angry or how wrong they think we were. Because some people think you're severely wrong. Some people think you're just a little bit wrong. Some people don't think you're really that wrong at all. Just a little small issue happened. Whenever I hear those things, I say, well, I'm going to be just a little bit more on the wrong side than the customer is saying we are, just so they understand that I acknowledge and understand, I know what they're saying. Again, this is part of the empathy thing as well, too, because not only do I understand what you're going through, and I understand that we could have fixed it, and man, this is worse than you're saying it is, because not only are you suffering, but we're going to make sure that all the customers are going to be fixed in this regard. We're gonna change this permanently in our company, so it doesn't just happen with you, but all the other customers are going to be taken care of as well in this part of it.
Right.
So in a way, the customer can now see themselves as a crusader that is kind of helping the company improve. And when I see that I can make a change in a company as a consumer, that makes me want to give you more feedback and more dialogue with your company. You see what I'm saying there?
Yep, exactly.
So in a way, you're kind of displaying this as a gift you're being given to admit the fact that, yes, we fell short. That's not how we are designing our service. Our service is designed to make you happy, smile. It gives you quality, reliability, safety, and health, and great customer service, what we're trying to provide, and we fell short of that this time. Let me go ahead and use this as a training moment, a way to make sure that we make this right, not just for you, but for all of our customers. I want to say thank you for sharing that with me. Does it make sense, sir?
Yeah, it makes complete sense there, and I think that's a great tool for people to use. I know sometimes this can be really hard for people internally in the office because sometimes we don't have quite all the pull or leverage that we need to get something done. But I think if there is some type of a concern that a client is bringing to you, and you as the CSR recognize, that this doesn't sound right, I think you're obligated really to have to fix it. Just as if we would say to a technician, if you saw something wasn't installed right in the field, you would be obligated to fix that as opposed to leave it the way it is at that point. Right. Something that we installed, we would say that you're obligated to fix it. If it's something that somebody else was installed, then I would say you're obligated to provide that solution for the customer and let them know, that something is. So I think that's the same way when it comes to customer service. If we did some type of a wrong out there, then we need to fix that as fast as we can internally. We need to let them know that we need to fix that.
I think essentially we have to let the customer know that we're on the same side of the problem they're on. That the problem is there, and us and the customer look at the problem as something we both have to fix together. In a way, the customer is collaborating with us because they brought the problem to us. Now it's our responsibility to take it to the next level. Make sense?
Yep. Exactly.
So in a way, the customer is part of the customer service team because they're the ones who inform us of opportunities to improve. It's our job to get on the same side of the problem as the customer is and not be on the opposing side of the problem.
Yep.
Make sense?
And, I think, like we always say, we always try to take customer concerns and look at them as an opportunity for us to improve. And that's really what they are. And if you keep that in mind, you're going to find that there are going to be a lot of opportunities that we can improve. And some of these people who start off with you as a difficult customer are going to end up being some of your best customers because they recognize that you're going to go on and fix this going forward.
True. Julie, number 6 is to demonstrate emotional control. Although we make an emotional investment in our clients to make friends with them, we also have to maintain emotional control because if the customer is going crazy, we really can't afford to go crazy, can we?
No, we really can't. And this is part of maybe what I alluded to before, is pretending there's an audience in the room with you, because that does help you keep that emotional control in check. We can't afford in any way to fight back with a customer or say things back to a customer that are going to probably come back and bite us in the butt at some point, particularly in this day and age with social media. We all know where that ends up when you have an angry customer who ends up going online and spreading that to everyone they know about our company. So any kind of emotional outbursts that come from us is just going to end up in bad publicity for the company.
I agree with you. I think the emotional self control, I think, is something we have to say. You know what? I definitely have to be friends with people and try to make that friendship. So I always give my friendship unconditionally to everybody as my customer. Now, if a customer doesn't accept that friendship and they're angry at me at this moment, I don't look at it as a negative against me. So I try and say, the poor guy, he's trying to get this across to me. He doesn't think I'm hearing him. Let me try and demonstrate that I hear him a little bit better on this thing. Give him what he needs. I kind of think of it this way, guys. Whenever I see my young child who's 7 years old and he starts to cry, I always think, oh, the first thing he really needs a hug. So, I mean, what I'm saying to you is this. Sometimes people hear a child crying and they want to spank the child, right? Or they hear a child crying and they want to yell at him to say, shut up, there's no reason to cry. You know, that you're telling somebody that there's no reason for your emotional outburst while they're having an emotional outburst right now telling them that very thing. It's ironic that when somebody begins to get emotional, it kind of raises the natural inclination of another person to also get emotional as well. And sometimes the person who's trying to control the other person's emotion is getting emotional and doing the exact same thing, mirroring that same behavior. So if you see your child who is getting angry about something, about watching TV, the best, or whatever, he wants to go out and play without doing his homework, the best thing you do is say, let me give you a hug first before we get started. Before we talk about doing your homework or anything, let's give you a hug. I think the same thing is true with the customer. It's like, you know what, Janet, let me just say how lucky I feel and how fortunate I feel. So we may not give them an actual hug, but we give them a verbal hug to say how happy we are that they would share this information with us, and how thankful we are that somebody would care enough to make a phone call and let us know about these challenges they're having with the pricing or with the dirt on the carpet, whatever the problem, or us being late, whatever the problem would be, that somebody would care enough to share that with us, and we should give that person a hug first. And that's kind of helps you maintain that emotional control, because if you get angry, you're starting to make the problem about yourself. And to me, customer service people who get get anxiety or get overly emotionally involved are more or less, I think it's a narcissistic viewpoint that I'm making the problem too much about yourself. Make sense? And really the problem's not about you at all. The problem is about the customer trying to make your company better. Otherwise, why would you ever bother to call somebody? I would never tell a restaurant to improve their service if I didn't plan on returning. If I'm not going to return, I wouldn't care what you do with your service at that point. So the good news is when somebody does complain to us, more than likely they're going to return to us if we can help them solve this problem, because why would you bother trying to complain if you weren't going to return?
Exactly. I think that's really a good point, and I can only imagine that if you ended up, even though, like you said, you can't give a physical hug, you could give that, verbal hug over the phone, how that would probably change the tone that's coming across the phone from the other end. So if you started off your conversation, by saying, you know what, Joe, I am so happy that you are a client of ours and that you're bringing this problem to me right now, and do that verbal hug over the line, they're probably gonna be like, what the heck, did I call the right place? And you're now gonna change the direction that this conversation just once was going to take into probably what will end up being a more reasonable conversation. So find a way to do that, to start off that way in a positive note, to turn it around a little bit, and then you're going to find that you're going to have a much easier client to deal with.
Julie, the seventh one.
I think that's probably one of the best tips out of all of them, really, to be honest with you, when dealing with a difficult customer and turning it around.
That's the tip of the webinar so far. And it leads right into our last one, which is number 7, which I kind of started with, and you corrected me.
That's okay.
Which is to not take it personal. That if we maintain our emotional perspective, then we are, in a way, not taking it personal, not making it about us. Again, taking it personal, in a way, makes us, basically, in a way, you're telling people that you're the one being harmed, or you're the one being damaged by what the customer's saying. Where it's like, I would say this, everybody, as a good customer service person, you have to release your need to be accepted by people. This is not about getting your needs met, or about how people feel about you. That, again, is a narcissistic point of view, that I need to be accepted by my customers. Listen, the only person who should be judging whether you're doing a good job or not is you looking in the mirror and saying, did you give 100% effort to make this problem improve? Make sense? And if you did that, then you make that judgment. You make the call about your value and what you need to work on, your strengths and your weaknesses. You're the one who has to evaluate that in yourself, because that's something that is not narcissistic. It's something that says, listen, I'm going to add value whether you're angry at me or not. I'm going to give you a hug first. We're going to handle this problem. We're going to make sure everything is taken care of. And I can tell you several times, Julie, where the problem was really messy and people were yelling at me and screaming at me and said they got bad, terrible service, and I remained calm, was emotionally empathetic, but not emotionally taking it personal. In the end, up until the very last moment where people are like, well, I think you've just solved my problem. Like, all of a sudden it just emerges that the problem has been solved, and I want to thank you so much. And, listen, when it comes to doing customer service, don't look for seashells and balloons and fireworks at the end of the segment. Sometimes you handle somebody's problem and they just say, all right, well, thank you. And that's about as much fireworks as you're going to get, right? So don't look for somebody.
Sometimes they don't even say that.
Don't look for an over empathetic or over celebration about this type of thing. Don't take it personal when people are not exactly happy at the end of your interaction. Don't take it personal when you have to reschedule somebody because you're providing customer service for somebody else. This is not about you. And that's why I say people who take it personal are making the job too much about themselves and not enough about the customers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's true. And not enough also about getting better as a whole. So again, your customer service, you're about serving others, and that also means serving the rest of the company. So if we have a problem here and you're figuring it out, you have access to this information. How do we make this better so that this doesn't keep going forward, within the company? So you could maybe take it personal to that extent, if you want to be able to figure out ways, how can I figure out ways to make it better going forward? But I think that's, really just, making it about yourself is the wrong way to go about it. It's about making it about the customer, making it about the company. What can we do to get better, and continue this relationship going forward?
Julie, I think that about ends our segment here. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I think if I have one, I'd like to say yes. I think the best point today was really about the previous one on demonstrating, making sure that we're giving that verbal hug to everybody, and keeping your emotions kind of in check. I want to say that's my favorite tip out of the whole webinar.
Well, Julie, I just want to say if anybody wants to learn more about excellent customer service techniques, they can always call you or go to contractorselling.com to find out more information. Our email is info@contractorselling.com. And just remember, everybody, the world needs pure motive service providers now more than ever in light of all the things that are happening in our world. So bring your A game every single day and perform pure motive service for your customer. That's all we have for now. Everybody have a great one. We'll see you on the next Customer Service Live webinar. Excellence is the result of doing 3 things and doing them every day: training, coaching, and accountability. These are the building blocks you'll need to perform world-class service. Being the best communicator doesn't come naturally, and most people quit when they hit that first barrier. I can tell you that the top 5% work on one thing they can control. That one thing is the effort they put into learning, practicing, and creating new habits. No one will ever have the passion that we have to push you across the goal line. We won't quit on people who believe in themselves. Do you care enough to try something different? If you do, your family, your company, and your industry will be glad you did. You'll leave a legacy of pure motive service that will live on for generations to come.